Hey class, we're going to do something this week that's a little bit different from normal. This week I'm going to just record a couple of podcasts, and you'll be watching documentaries on the Mexican-American War. And also I'm going to post an interview with Gwen, a very interesting interview from that show, Fresh Air, which is on NPR, National Public Radio. And he's going to talk about the book because you're going to be reading more of Gwen this week. In this podcast, though, I want to create or orient you to the Mexican-American War and the significance for Texas. Now, if you're looking at a screen, which you don't have to be, of course, for this course, you're looking at a very, very controversial advertisement from 2008. And I do want you to take a look at it at some point before the quiz next week. And it's an ad for Absolute Vodka. I'm not promoting the drinking of vodka or any other alcoholic drink. Let me make that clear by showing you this ad. What I am doing, though, is this ad created a very, very intense controversy in 2008 because it shows the size of Mexico in 1821, or what it indicates is what Mexico would look like if the Mexican-American War had never happened and if Texas had never broken from the Mexican nation. And that's why this ad caused so much controversy. It didn't cause any controversy in Mexico, but it caused a lot of controversy in the United States because what it brought to the fore, what it highlighted is something that Americans don't really like to think of themselves of, and the United States is an imperial power. The United States captured 55% of the Mexican nation between 1821 and 1848, and the capture of 55% of Mexico, it actually happened in the 1840s. The first thing that happened, of course, is Texas, which was already an independent nation. It had broken from Mexico, as you well know, in 1836. In late 1845, Texas was annexed into the United States. The Mexican nation was furious that the United States had captured Texas, had allowed Texas to become a U.S. state, a slave state, of course. And this engendered a lot of anger in Mexico. And this is one of the leading causes of the Mexican-American War, which occurs beginning in 1846 and it ends in 1848. Okay, so Mexican-American War, very, very significant. And this figure that the U.S. captured 55% of Mexico in the 1840s. It's a really important figure. It's kind of one of the most incredible figures or facts about U.S. history in the 19th century. And just to give you fair warning, I'm going to test you on it, either on the quiz next week or on the midterm. It's something that I want you to know. The Americans don't like to think of themselves as an empire, but in fact, the U.S. is an empire. The U.S. would not stretch from sea to shining sea had it not forcibly captured a good portion of Mexico during the Mexican-American War. Now, let me stop for a second and underline something. I've mentioned it, but I want to underline it again because it's a little bit confusing. Texas was already part of the United States when the Mexican-American War occurs. So Texas is already part of the U.S., but South Texas, the area between the Nueces River and the Rio Grande River, it was contested territory. And this is one of the reasons that the Mexican-American War was fought. So for instance, cities like Laredo were not part of Texas between 1836 and until 1848. The towns along the Rio Grande that existed in the 1830s and 1840s, they were still Mexico until 1848. So that's a very, very significant point. So Texas, north of the Nueces River, is already part of the United States when the Mexican-American War happens. One of the reasons that the Mexican-American War happens is Mexico so angry that the U.S. Incorporated Texas or annexed Texas. Remember, Mexico still felt like it could recapture Texas, and it still felt like Texas was part of the Mexican nation. Well, after the U.S. Incorporates Texas or annexes Texas in 1848 or 1845 rather, clearly Texas is gone forever. It's never going to be part of Mexico. So the fight during the Mexican-American War is about the area between the Nueces River and the Rio Grande River. And this is one of the reasons I've made such a big point in this course of talking about the importance of the fact that the Nueces River, which goes through Corpus Christi, had during the Spanish and the Mexican period been the southern border of Texas. Okay, why does the United States want Texas? Why does it want the Rio Grande? And this is something else I'm going to test you on. It wants the Rio Grande because a lot of folks feel the Rio Grande would be a river highway into the center of North America. There was a hope that the Rio Grande could be a transportation network, that goods from the interior of Mexico and West Texas, what was going on in Chihuahua, just on the other side of the Rio Grande border, there was a lot of mining activity, there was a lot of gold and silver that was coming from this area. There was the production of sheep and goats and hides. And the hope was that the Rio Grande might serve as a kind of a highway from the interior of West Texas and northern Mexico to the Gulf of Mexico, to the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico, what becomes Brownsville. So that's why the Rio Grande was so important. And that's what the fight over the territory between the Nueces and the Rio Grande was. Now we know that there were also millions and millions of longhorn cattle in the area between the Nueces and the Rio Grande River. There were also hundreds of thousands of wild horses. In fact, it was called the Wild Horse Desert. So this area between the Rio Grande and the Nueces, which is a large area if you've ever driven, and some of you have, I know, down to Brownsville, especially from Houston, it just kind of takes forever. It's a big part of the state. So there is a lot of, there's cattle that will become part of cattle drives in the 1870s, there's horses, but that's not why the U.S., that's not why Anglo-Texans wanted the Rio Grande. They wanted the Rio Grande because they believed the Rio Grande would turn into a transportation highway that would go deep into the interior of North America. Maybe Texas could even capture some of the Santa Fe trade, something like that. Now, let me just say right off the bat that the Rio Grande did not turn out to be a reliable transportation highway. The farthest inland that you can transport goods along the Rio Grande is Rio Grande City. The river, and if you're from the border, or if you've crossed it much, it's just too shallow, especially now because water gets sucked out of the Rio Grande, Santa Fe and El Paso. The Rio Grande doesn't even reach the Gulf of Mexico anymore, which is kind of incredible to think about. But anyway, even during its heyday, before population centers started arising and grabbing water from the Rio Grande just did not turn out to be a good transportation highway. Say like the Mississippi River, which is a fantastic transportation highway. Goods can flow all the way from Minnesota to New Orleans. The Hudson River in New York, another fantastic river transportation highway that you can go from northern New York all the way to Manhattan. Now those are good transportation highways. The Rio Grande did not turn out to be a good transportation highway. But anyway, that was the hope. That was the hope. So that's one of the significant reasons that there's a war between Mexico and the United States that establishes the Rio Grande beginning in 1846 because of the hopes that it could be a transportation highway like the Mississippi River or the Hudson River. It just doesn't work out that way.